Welcome to the CCTV Public Access Sports Show with Dan and Stu. Here are your hosts, Daniel Hendler and Stuart Friedel.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the Stephen Marko presents the WWW at ClaremontTelevision.com present the CCTV Public Access Sports Show with Dan and Stu. Lou and Silvia, presented by Lou and Silvia,
and
of
Bam
course.
Bam.
And Bam-bam. And Bam-bam.
Today, as you might be able to see, we have a new lighting scheme we're testing out, going a little bit darker than usual, going for the cinematic feel. We have basically a gamma filter on, for those of you that are familiar with, technology. We're going for a...
Slightly different than the Omega filter.
Slightly different.
In layman's term.
Exactly.
But we got a little I like to call it the disco cinema.
The disco cinema is a great way to put it. Well, not a strobe, but a colored disco ball.
That's true, yeah.
Disco does not suck, despite what?
It's not dead either.
And geeks might
it's coming back.
Disco is making. I've been saying that since the 70s. Disco's making a comeback.
Since 1970.
We got a great show for you tonight. We got a little bit of NCAA. He promised you last week. He's actually, for the first time in CCTV Sports Show history, following up with a promise. Dan Halaby is going to give you his 5 most overrated NCAA teams. A little bit of basketball preview. We've got a fantasy baseball preview coming your way. But first, today was a historic day in the NFL. What would it take for a man like Warren Sapp to retire and for it to barely get mentioned on a sidebar?
Well,
the answer is...
if Brett Favre retired that day as well. And here's the question. Did Brett Favre get word that Warren Sapp was going to retire? And to top that, he decided to announce his retirement that day also?
They've had a rivalry their entire career, as we know. Career-long rivalry. Back from when the Bucks and the Packers were in the same division. They used to play a lot, and they were basically the two dominant teams in the NFC.
Back in the mid-90s.
So I guess the question right now is, where do they each rank in history?
I think... How many seasons has Warren Sapp been playing?
13.
13, and Favre is 17. But obviously for the quarterback, that's...
Right, and he was a backup with Atlanta before he was a starter.
Yeah, that's true.
So and Sapp was an instant...
They've been in the limelight for the same time.
Sapp was 14th overall pick, and they were saying that Sapp was picked so late because he tested positive for marijuana in the combines when he was coming out of college. But 14th pick
But he didn't inhale, I heard. Or wait, is that someone else?
No, I think that might have been Sapp. But he still tested positive. Yeah. It was on his lips. They did the test. But they said he picked him so late. He was picked 14th overall. That is a testament already to how great. I mean, he's one of the best ever in college. Yeah. Out of, oh my God, one of the first days ever. I can't reference the Miami.
I don't know Sapp.
Sapp was out of the University of Miami back in the day, 13 years ago, which was great.
Was Favre UAB? No, God.
Southern Miss.
Southern Miss. That's it. Yeah.
But I'm going to go, well, first of all, Brett Favre. Brett Favre broke a lot of Marino's records this year. He had his first good season in a long time. A lot of people are saying the reason he retired is because this is probably going to give him the last chance to go out on top, which I agree with. Also, the fact that he broke the records. But
most touchdowns and most interceptions, right?
I believe so, and most yards.
Yeah.
I don't know those for a fact, but definitely most touchdowns, I know. But Favre is not going to hold those records for much longer. There's a guy named Manning. Is it Eli or Peyton Manning?
I think you're the second of the two Mannings.
Yeah, right now the one that nobody ever talks about anymore. Yeah. Peyton Manning is most likely going to take all those records home with him very soon. So I don't know, where does Favre rank?
Favre is like a god, though. I mean, when's the last time you saw a quarterback who would go block for his running back?
You know what? Favre is tough, but that comes with years of alcoholism. That he's battled a lot of demons in his life.
That's true. But Favre is a god to that city and a god to most football fans. Warren Sapp is a great Hall of Famer. I think that Favre, in terms of perception, Favre will always go down as one of the great.
Favre.
He'll be like the legendary. He'll be like shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yeah,
because we all talk about him every day.
I mean, I do. Favre is unquestionably going to go down as one of the top 10 ever, I would say. While Sapp, I mean, you look at Sapp's sack totals, for instance, and he's 28th of all time Sapp. But then you look at the fact that he was a defensive tackle, not a defensive end, and you realize it's actually extremely impressive.
Yeah, amazing.
He also, as my dad said, why the Dolphins should take Glenn Dorsey, this is before the injury things came out, is the fact that when you have somebody like Warren Sapp, as the exact example he used, it changes your defense It changes the game so much. It changes the way that the offense has to play against you so much. Warren Sapp, for years, was the sole reason that the Bucs were such a great defense. And you look at like Derek Brooks and John Lynch being hailed as some of the greatest players of their generation on defense. And while I don't necessarily disagree with that, I'm going to go as far as to say that if they weren't, triple teaming Sack every week, that those two guys wouldn't be hailed nearly as highly as they were. And that the whole defense obviously Tony Dungy has proven to be great since then, but a lot of his greatness came from the defense that he built with Tampa Bay, and I'm going to give a lot of that credit to Warren Sapp.
Oh yeah, it's the ripple effect. It's the same argument for why Shaq makes so many other players great, is that he takes
did
made
so many other players.
Hey, the Suns have won 2 games with him, but yeah, I gotta agree with you, and I mean it obviously changes the way the other team plays offense as well. So.
Right. So Sapp is a Hall of Famer. We'll both agree with that.
Oh, completely, first ballot.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. He didn't have a great tenure in Oakland, although his last few years are better than his first few there. But he did get.
They each have 1 Super Bowl, right? Sapp only has 1, right?
I believe. Yeah, Sapp only has 1 with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But Sapp, Favre. Okay, so Sapp we're agreeing is a Hall of Famer. Favre obviously is a Hall of Famer. The question is, where does Favre rank in the greatest quarterbacks of all time?
Man.
I was reading an article.
What do you think?
I was reading an article on one of our rival websites today, ESPN.com.
We're catching up.
We're almost there. We're basically, they've been emailing us threatening to sue for just undisclosed, absurd reasons because they realize that their market share is being threatened.
Yeah.
That's great. I was reading an article today on ESPN.com, and they were asking like a few experts what they thought. One guy said, there are 5 amazing quarterbacks that I cannot decide among as the 5 best ever, and Warren Sapp is the 6th. Meaning that those 5 are still the best, and Warren Sapp is the next person. He's not.
You mean Brett Favre?
Oh yeah, Brett Favre. He's not. Although I think Sapp may have caught more touchdown passes. That Brett Favre is not in the top 5, but he's not in the second 5. He is the 6th.
Yeah. Who do you put ahead of him?
Marino. I think Peyton Manning, when it's all said and done, will be better than him. I think Johnny U.
Yeah.
And then there's some guys I'm not that familiar with. I don't know about the really early ones. Like I never go.
Montana.
I see Ned saying Joe Montana. The only person I think is more overrated than Joe Montana is Joe Namath, because Joe Namath never did anything good. Joe Montana did a lot of good things, but
Joe Namath has that.
Very hard not to do good things.
Like Favre, he kind of has that extra, that aura about him.
Joe Namath?
Yeah.
Do I need to go on my Joe Namath rant right now?
Next week.
More interceptions than touchdowns for his career. Never led the NFL in passing yards. Never led the NFL in passing touchdowns. Threw 1 pass the entire second half of the Super Bowl that made him legendary. Joe Namath is not a good quarterback. He made 1 call and he benefited from the New York media. Joe Montana, I'm going to say that Montana had this thing called Jerry Rice. When I was a little kid, I used to watch these games where they would throw like a ball into 22 people on the field, and all of a sudden Jerry Rice would come out with it one-handed and run into a touchdown. That does not make a good quarterback. That makes an unbelievable receiver. But so I'm gonna put Elway better than Favre.
Oh yeah. Elway, you know what? Elway's a lot. Well, I don't really remember the '96 Super Bowl. Favre, did Favre win? Was he MVP that year?
I
don't think he was. I don't think he was Super Bowl MVP.
Who was?
I'm trying to remember.
You might be. Dorsey Levens. I think that Favre was a 3-time MVP of the NFL.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. That is very impressive. Marino, I think, was a 1-time MVP. His second year in the NFL. But Favre had a long stretch where he wasn't that great. He had a lot of problems off the field at points in time in his career. And in general, I really think that he really was surrounded by amazing teams. And obviously I'm a Marino lover, but I'm like Marino versus, like, my dad always says that Archie Manning is the greatest quarterback he ever saw. He just never had a team.
That's true, yeah.
Well, I say Marino's the greatest quarterback I ever saw because he never had a team and he still broke all these records.
Yeah.
Favre always has had a team around him. And the few seasons where he didn't have a team, granted he was old, so you can't really look at them as definitive judgments, but he wasn't good those years. And this year he got a team back around him. And it's not like Favre pulled a magic season out of his patootie. It was just that Favre finally had a team around him for the first time in a long time.
Well, that's the thing about football, more so than basketball or baseball. It's the least of the individuated sport, where it's like you rely more on other players than you do. Like baseball, if you break the home run record, that's pretty much all you.
Right.
Basketball, basketball is a little more of a
Yeah,
it's a little different. But football, like for a quarterback, it really depends on the receivers you have. It really depends on the offensive line you have.
That's the biggest thing is the offensive line. And running back helps too, Like Marino, for instance, he passed a lot because he didn't have a running back, but he also didn't have an offensive line, and that's a testament to the fact that a guy with no knees and no offensive line isn't getting sacked that often because he's got.
If you have a great running back, it alters the way the opposing defense plays the game. So it's hard to say because like Archie Manning is a case of an amazing. I heard the argument that Eli is already better than Archie Manning. I think that's ridiculous. Archie Manning was on a Saints team that if you look at the rest of that team and look at the numbers, it's
for a career too. Like a 1 year stint.
He was playing on a decent Division I college team.
Exactly,
basically.
A career of that. But so I guess.
I just think because Favre, because he had that toughness, because he had the Iron Man reputation, because he would block for his running backs, I think that puts him in the top 5. I put him at number 5.
I think he's definitely in the top 10. Again, my familiarity with the NFL before like 1970 isn't that great, and before 1990 is decent but not that great.
Yeah. I'd say I don't know who's number 1, but I'd say Unitas. I would say definitely Marino. I don't buy your Joe Montana. I got to put Joe Montana in the top 5. I got to put Elway number 4 probably, and then I say Marino. So I'm gonna hold off on Peyton. Favre. Yeah, sorry. I got to hold off on. Peyton.
I think Peyton's already. If Peyton, died tomorrow in a car crash, I think that
2 more seasons and I'll put him in the top 5.
Fair enough.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, it's about time. Were you having your NCAA next or fantasy baseball?
What do you think?
I think you should do your NCAA.
Okay.
Are you prepared?
Let's do it third. I want to build up the suspense a little bit. I'll drop hints in the next segment as to who some of my most overrated teams are.
We got a fantasy baseball preview coming up after the break, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
As you guys heard last week, we've got our fantasy baseball season draft this Sunday coming up, so we're going to post that link so you can observe our draft on the website. And also
watch it live if you want to. It's going to be the first live broadcast in CCTV/ClermontTelevision.com.
So we're going to do a quick fantasy baseball preview, very brief, and in that we will. I don't know. That's it.
We'll see you. Do you want to? Is there someone you want to mention?
You already mentioned Stephen Marko.
You're not going to mention him? I mentioned him.
You got the whole show dedicated to him this week.
Yeah, but I've never met him. If I just mentioned him.
You have met him. Freshman year, you met him.
Oh, now I look like an idiot. Okay, we'll take a break.
Legendary memory, Dan. No, maybe you didn't because we made no.
Did he come during NCAA tournament time? Because if so, I only saw him sleeping.
Sleeping in my room when we watched the game and went to Matt LaPola.
So, yeah.
See you after the break.
See ya.
Is it on? No, is it recording though? Because it's only one of the cameras. It's on?
Yes.
Why are you getting, why is the shot like this? The shot could look better. Do I have to look at people are gonna be looking at me at my show, okay? Kramer rants. They wanna see Kramer. Kramer rants. Not Brian plays with the controls. Not let's see what angles, what green screen we can do. That's not the name of the show! The name of the show is Kramer Rants on CCTV. Get it right, Brian. Stop messing with the cameras. They're going to get confused. Well, I'm in white now. Oh! Come on, Brian. Figure it out. I'm just as pale. Are you making fun of my paleness? I don't want this. I don't want to be on this show anymore.
Welcome back to the CCTV Public Access Sports Show with Dan and Stu.
Welcome back to the Stephen Marko presents, the ClermontTelevision.com present Public Access Sports Show, brought to you by Lou, Silvia, Bam-bam, and for this segment only, Lee Friedel.
And you know what? I think we're going to have to throw Lainey in there, too. I think it's a little bit unfair.
Well, I was going to give her the next one.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Take back
well,
this
thanks
segment.
for ruining the surprise.
Take back this segment. So we got Fantasy Baseball Preview coming up right now, and what we've decided is we're not going to give you any sleepers. We're not going to give you any busts. Maybe we'll do that next week. For now, we're going to talk strategy. And fantasy baseball strategy is the hardest of the fantasy sports strategies to predict because so many different leagues run in so many different ways. You've got your head-to-head league. You've got your standard rotisserie leagues.
Why don't you talk about our league? Because that's the one that that's the one that the fans are going to be paying attention to.
Now, our league is in a unique situation. because our league is a head-to-head league, which is 6x6. Now, most head-to-head leagues will be 5x5. And what that'll mean is you've got 5 categories for pitching or 5 categories for batting. And then most head-to-head leagues also work on a 10-game basis, or if it was our scoring system, it'd be a 12-game basis. 10-game basis means that, let's say I win 8 of 10 categories that week, then I won 8 games and my opponent won 2 games. We are working on a 1-game basis, meaning if I win 7 of 12 categories, I get the win, 7 of 12, so 7 of 5, I get the win and you get the loss. And it just means that you have to win the majority of categories. You don't have to you don't have to focus on each one. If you want to be, you can stack certain things. So there are certain things that you could take advantage of. For instance, stolen bases. Like that could be a free little categorical victory every week if you want. What becomes interesting with something like this is we are also doing. We have a weekly roster as opposed to a daily roster.
Much better, I think.
Much better, because the daily roster, you get into this problem where people will sign on every day and pick up starters.
This is why I think fantasy football is inherently superior to fantasy baseball. But
what we've done with our league is basically structured it as a fantasy football, which I think is great.
Much better.
So that makes basically pitchers moot. You don't ever want to draft from pitchers because you just pick up whoever's playing any week, and you usually use your 3 bench spots for 3 decent pitchers. We've also done is we set requirements for what pitchers you have. So it's a 3 starter, 3 reliever, and then 3 utility pitcher, as opposed to 9 utility pitchers, which most leagues will have. Meaning there are certain ways you're forced to structure your team. Now, what I would recommend doing in a league like that, and what I probably will want to do in my league, is using at least 2 of my 3 bench spots for 1 extra reliever and 1 extra starter. So that way I can rotate based on my opponent weekly, so that I can start the proper combination of, let's say, 3 starters, 6 relievers, 4 starters, 5 relievers, whatever, so that I can take advantage of the saves or the whip or, however I need to. Our 6 categories, let's see if I can get these off the top of my head. Batting is average, home runs, on-base percentage, batting, home runs, on-base percentage, steals,
total bases,
runs, and
RBI.
Pitchers are strikeouts, wins, saves, ERA, batting average against, strikeouts, wins, saves, ERA, batting average against, and whip. So what we've done is we've thrown into the normal 5 the batting average against and the on-base percentage. It might even be on-base plus slugging, which were ideas that I structured the league. They're ideas that I got based on Moneyball. Just ways to properly evaluate talent that kind of gives a little bit more weight to the players that actually are producing more.
So let's do a little strategy now. Give us a couple hints.
Strategy with something like that. What I think is very important is taking into consideration the fact that you are having weekly starters. Now, when you've got the saves versus when you've got you have to counterbalance saves versus wins. You want to look at what your opponent's doing, and let's say one week you've got Johan Santana as one of your prime pitchers, and he's starting once. It might benefit you to throw in an extra starter in one of your utilities than usual, because that way you get a few extra starts, build up your strikeouts, but you want to be careful with the ERA and whip there. So it is a careful balance, and when I say most important there is you want to try to match your starts for the week pretty close to your opponents, because if you go too heavy one way or the other, you might sacrifice your average numbers, your whip, your batting average against, things like that, trying to chase that extra win, and frankly, it's not worth it. And the extra strikeouts that come with the extra innings as well. The other thing that I think is that, we're also doing a 3-year keeper league, which I think boosts the value for somebody like Hanley Ramirez, who already ESPN ranks as number 2.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Overall?
Yeah.
Oh.
Drops maybe the value of A-Rod a little bit, who ESPN ranks as number 1, and maybe even boosts the value of Albert Pujols, a guy who normally would be number 1, number 2, number 3 pick overall, and ESPN has ranked at 5 or 6 because he was injured last year a little bit. But he's not going to be probably injured again, meaning that next year he'd be a good guy to keep. You also want to then look for guys like Delman Young, like the young Ryan Howard, guys who normally might be a little bit later, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. They might bump up to 1st round picks. Somebody like Pedro Martinez, not worth a first 5 pick. You keep 5 people. You want to think that of the 5 you're keeping, hopefully 3 to 4 will come from your first 5 rounds.
Got any decent pitcher in the National League, I would say, is worth picking up the way that league hits.
I agree with that, but another thing that's important to remember is that pitchers are the people that vary the most from year to year. Besides your prime ones, and even your prime ones.
Especially relief pitchers, I would say.
Oh yeah.
More so than anybody.
It's like the odds of you keeping one of your your non-elite pitchers is not as high as you'd think. You know, people are not as great from year to year as you expect them to be. You also have the question of if you're doing a league where it all comes down to how many categories you win that week. For instance, you know, like our league, and you get the 1 win or the 1 loss, and it's not like you can win 8 and lose 4. It's 1 or none. You have to ask yourself, you've got 9 starting pitchers and 15 starting batters. So a pitcher seems like they'd be more valuable, but also a pitcher isn't playing every day. Do you want to take a pitcher earlier because of that or later because of that?
That's true.
And there's also the fact that every batter is doing the same thing. You want to have a combination of average speed guys. You want to have a combination of power, average speed on base percentage guys, and a combination of power runs RBI guys. But nonetheless, they're all doing the same thing, and they're all going to helping you out with both. You're getting players that are maybe counterbalancing that when it comes down to your pitchers. And the fact that you also, you've got those 3 utility spots to work with where reliever versus starter are very different things. Now, one thing I do recommend that people will probably be overlooking is the fact that a middle reliever who's going to get you good batting average against numbers, good whip numbers, and good ERA numbers, those guys should not be overlooked as valuable players because that's 3 of your 6 categories right there. You're going to get an occasional one with them. You're going to get the occasional save with them. But that, for your utility guys, that might be enough to push you one way or the other. You're going to get a few strikeouts, and you're going to get good numbers for the average categories. So I recommend not overlooking them. If you've had any of the great ones in the past, Guillermo Mota, there was a period in time right before he became a closer and kind of stunk. There was a period in time where having Guillermo Mota on your team would almost instantly put you in contention for all the average categories. And people, for some reason, kept overlooking him. This was like a 5-year span where he was doing this for you. So, I don't know. I guess there you have it. There's some fantasy baseball strategies.
Interesting tidbits.
Probably shouldn't be giving too much away to somebody in the league. And hopefully not too many league members will be watching this. But
well, I mean, we have what share of internet viewers? 75% of people on the internet are watching our show.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah.
But 75% of
that was last week.
75% of people who use the internet watch our show. But who are online at any given time, it's usually.
And now that we've got our porno lighting, I mean,
exactly.
People are gonna come in droves.
Well, we're gonna get it on after the break, I guess.
During the break, and then cut in. Anyway. Take a break. We're going to do some college basketball. I'm going to unveil my top 5 most overrated teams. You might find a few surprises in there.
I hope so.
I might even surprise myself.
You did hint at those very well. You guys watched his
It was in the eyes.
Gestures,
it was in the eyes.
And we got some surprise news about a local team as well from college.
Yeah. Some local kids going off to do some good things.
Coming up after the break.
See you soon. Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Stu.
Right now, you're in the middle of another hilarious episode of the CCTV Presents the Public Access Sports Show.
But make sure to stay tuned after this because at 9 o'clock, coming up, part of Closed Circuit Television, is Ned Halaby's Seen on Screen, the best movie show we have here on CCTV.
By far.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the CCTV Public Access Sports Show with Dan and Stu.
Welcome back to the Stephen Marko Presents the ClermontTelevision.com present the CCTV Public Access Sports Show with Dan and Stu, presented by Stuart, Silvia and Bam-bam, and our special guest presenter for this segment only, Lainey Friedel.
There you go. We're going to have to start giving your family some shout-outs in the near future.
Yeah. So
they're the only one that watches.
That's true.
I don't know.
Not enough to do
I think
it.
my family watches.
You got to get them on that, man.
Yeah, have them start commenting anonymously on Kramer Rants.
So big news. As soon as Tennessee got the #1 ranking last week, they lost it.
Yes.
Losing to Vanderbilt on the road, very tough game. And Vanderbilt, in turn, goes and loses to Arkansas. Yep. So the SEC is a good league this year.
And Vanderbilt, I'm going to go as far as to say they are an underrated team despite that loss.
I think Vanderbilt's a Sweet 16 team.
And
it seems like they make the tournament once every 3 or 4 years. It's like a 6 seed, and every time they do, they go in, they'll upset whoever they're 2 or 3 or whoever they're playing, and do pretty well.
Watch for Dan and I at the first round, Anaheim.
We'll be there.
Section
we'll be
414.
No, we're gonna be on the court, right? Present it.
That's what
broadcasting?
Section 414 means. It means on the court.
Okay. I just didn't want to confuse our viewers.
Yeah.
So
they don't know the lingo, I guess.
Going to unveil my top 5 most overrated teams. Like I said, there are going to be a couple surprises in here. Our director's not going to be too happy about this, but I'm going to start it off. Number 1 most overrated team, Washington State University Cougars. First of all, I don't understand why anyone picks I'm from the Northwest. I don't understand why anyone picks the Northwest to do well at anything. They're always overrated. They never win. The Supersonics have a championship from 30 years ago.
And they're going to be good very soon and not going to be in the Northwest anymore.
Well, once they become the Oklahoma City Sonics, they'll probably clean up. But the Seattle Mariners get 116 wins, bow out to the Yankees. Yeah. Washington gets the number 1 seed, loses to Louisville. Washington State, I mean, with every loss, it's unbelievable that with 7 losses, they're still even ranked in the top 25. But, again, defense does not win championships in the NCAA. It doesn't. People say that. When does it happen?
Except for football.
In football. In NCAA basketball. 2000 Michigan State team is the only team I can think of that scored less than 70 points a game that won the title. It just doesn't happen. It's high-powered offenses that win. Mateen Cleaves?
Mateen Cleaves.
Yes, exactly.
One of the saddest stories, and I don't know why I'm laughing.
And Washington State has got a pretty terrible offense and a good defense, and they just, every big game they play, their biggest road win is at Baylor, which is decent. Look, it's better than it looked to be at the beginning of the year. They've bowed out to every decent team they've played. Lost to Stanford twice, lost to UCLA twice, lost to Arizona twice, who's not even that good this year. They're my number 1 most overrated team. Number 2, Cornell, the Big Red, or whatever they are. Now, how is the 14 seed overrated?
Possibly the future home of Ian Frank.
That's true, and that's why I'm saying that mostly to him. But maybe we can get him on if we get a response next week out of him. They are the first team to punch their ticket to the dance. They are 20-5. Their losses are quality losses. They're probably going to go through the Ivy League undefeated. Probably going to get a decent seed for the Ivy too, maybe a 13. But every year, someone picks an Ivy League team, and it's been Penn or Princeton every year for the last 20 years, to go on and upset a big guy. I don't know why this happens. The Ivy League is the softest. They're a low major conference.
Oh yeah,
they're not very good.
A D2 conference.
They really are a D2 conference.
If they didn't
it's a name
start
school,
this whole college sports thing,
it's really, yeah. It's like the Pabst Blue Ribbon thing. They're still riding that 1893
exactly.
Blue Ribbon.
Exactly.
Cornell, they're just not going to be able to compete with the top 4 seed. They might be. I can't even see them keeping it close. When you're looking for your upset picks, don't go with an Ivy. It doesn't happen. I don't know why people do this. Number 3, Memphis. Memphis is a good team. They're going to be a 1 seed. They might be number 1 overall. I see them getting maybe to the Sweet 16, possibly the Elite 8. But that game against Tennessee, which was at home, was very, very telling.
Very telling. You know what? They're worthy of a top 1-2 seed. They are that talented.
Oh, they are.
They're
good.
They're not
They're good.
that good.
But it really is what they say is true. It's tough to go through that, to not get tested like that for an entire conference season.
Right.
And I mean, they deserve a number 1 seed if it gets it. It's not their fault that Cincinnati and Louisville and Marquette ditched them in there, But it's just, in today's day and age, I think it's difficult. And you see Gonzaga, who is constantly, they haven't made the Sweet 16 in quite a while, and as they've been, gotten these higher seeds. It's going through a major conference schedule, it really prepares you, because those are the kind of teams you're facing after the first weekend. And Memphis, that game against Tennessee, they just weren't hitting their free throws. And when a team knows that they can, if you're up by 10 with 2 minutes left, and a team knows they can just start hacking at you, it's going to, especially for a team like Memphis that likes to run the floor, it's going to disrupt your game.
Right.
And it's going to lower your confidence. And that's why it segues into my number 4 team, Stanford Cardinal. Great big men. Great big men. But they don't have the inside-out game. And I know people always say, is it guards? Is it guard play? Is it, forward play that wins you championships? It's both. You've got to have a good inside-out game. You saw that with Syracuse when they had Hakeem Warwick and Carmelo.
What a team.
You saw it with North Carolina when everyone talked about, Raymond Felton and those great guards, but they also had Sean May. Sean May's the reason they beat Illinois. Exactly. I think this year Stanford, great big men. Again, probably going to be at lowest, I'd say a 3 seed. I can see them making the Sweet 16, but they just don't have the point guard play. They don't have the guard play to get them very far. And another poor free throw shooting team. My final, I guess, overrated conference would be the non-state of North Carolina ACC.
Wow. You got to be more specific there. You just included Wake Forest and NC State.
Wake Forest, I think Wake Forest could win a game maybe.
Wake Forest isn't making the tournament.
Oh, they could. They might.
Don't we have money on this?
Did we?
I think we put $5 on this last weekend.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, Wake Forest is not making the tournament.
I think they might be the 4th team out of and it's looking like
The
they're going to be.
4th team, Clemson and Miami are both in.
Miami is not in, my friend.
Clemson and Miami.
Miami is far from
Clemson and Miami are in.
No, Clemson's in. Miami's not in.
You think Wake Forest is going to make the tournament over Miami?
Wake Forest has a winning record in the ACC. Miami's 6-9. 7-7 now. That's true. They got that win over Virginia.
There we go.
But still, this is a terrible conference this year. Except for Duke and North Carolina, who just look better and better to me every day. And I think both of them are. If I had to revise my Final Four picks, I'd put them both in the Final Four. But
if I had to
the rest of the league.
Oh wait, no, I wouldn't have to revise them to put them both in the Final Four.
You did not have Duke. You didn't have
yes, I
Duke
did.
in the Final Four.
It was Duke, North Carolina, Tennessee, and UCLA. Were my 4.
I feel like this is changed by a team.
We'll look back on previous sports shows.
Okay, we will. I trust you. But just not strong this year. They're a 3-bid league. I think it's Clemson, North Carolina, and Duke are the teams that deserve to get in.
Do you want to put another $5 on Miami?
That they're gonna get in?
Yeah, $5 Wake doesn't get in, and $5 Miami does.
Okay, let's do it. On this part, you saw it here. You saw it here. They're gonna get 5 bids probably. The question, I think they should get 4. I think Wake Forest is definitely gonna be one of them. I think Clemson, and I think it's gonna be between Maryland and Miami. But it's all gonna come down to the tournament.
Maryland's not making the tournament.
But really, don't be surprised. I'd be shocked if we had more than Duke and North Carolina past the first day of the tournament. So
I don't disagree with that.
that's it. Next week.
Whoa. Surprise from our local boys.
Oh, true. We got to do this.
Ticket punching.
Going from 1 to 3. The Claremont. Wait. The Pomona Pitzer Sagehens, led by Coach Cat, going to the Division III tournament, punched their ticket with a victory over CMC on Saturday. Thrilling game. Won it at the last second. And congrats to all those guys. We might have to get Coach Cat back on here to talk about it.
Might have to. Yeah, post-season. That's our show for this week. Coming up next week, we got fantasy baseball draft recap. We got some more.
Maybe we'll do an NFL draft.
NFL draft preview?
Yeah, let's do it.
NFL draft preview, fantasy baseball draft recap, and we got NCAA is getting closer. We're going to keep updating you on that. I might give you my 5 most underrated teams, but that is a might. And probably won't happen.
And as always, topics are subject to change.
Yes, and hopefully we'll have a guest for you guys. It's been a little while since we've had a guest.
Yeah, that's true. And since you have not said his name once on the show, Stephen Marko again. It's all for you, man. This show. We weren't gonna film today, but I got the call and
I was like, you know what? Steven's got to have a show for him, so let's make him a show.
Yeah,
let's make him a show. This is the CCT. See, this is the ClaremontTelevision.com public access sports show with Dan and Stu, with various presenters along the way. See you next week.
Bye.